Welcome back to Chess 369, where we break down the game's deepest strategies and turn them into simple, powerful ideas you can use immediately. In today's video, we're diving into one of the most solid and reliable defenses against e4, the Caro-Kann Defense. We'll explore the core ideas, hidden traps, strategic plans, and how Black can take control of the center with confidence. If you're ready to upgrade your understanding of this legendary opening, stay with me. This video is packed with insights that can truly transform your chess strength. Let's get started. The Caro-Kann Defense is one of the most solid and effective counterattacking options against pawn to e4. It offers Black a strong and flexible structure while aiming for long-term stability and counterplay. After pawn to e4 and pawn to c6, we enter the Caro-Kann Defense. But why do we play pawn to c6 in the first place? The main idea is that on the next move, Black will almost always play pawn to d5, directly challenging White's center. If White captures on d5, Black can recapture with the c-pawn, establishing a solid pawn on d5 and gaining central control. Additionally, pawn to c6 opens up an important diagonal for the queen, allowing smoother piece coordination later on. Usually, White continues with pawn to d4, strengthening their center. In response, Black plays pawn to d5, which creates the main branching point of the entire Caro-Kann defense. At this stage, White must decide how to handle the tension in the center. One of the most popular choices is the advance variation, where White pushes pawn to e5. Against this, Black plays pawn to c5, known as the Carl's defense setup. With this move, Black temporarily sacrifices the c-pawn to create dynamic counterplay. If White accepts the pawn, their pawns on d4 and e5 become isolated and targets for attack. These weaknesses allow Black to generate excellent counterattacking chances while maintaining a solid position. Before we explore the pawn-accepted variation, let's take a look at the most common response and by far the most popular move, pawn to c3. This cautious option avoids capturing the pawn on c5 and instead focuses on solidifying White's center. However, this seemingly safe move actually gives Black a great opportunity to take control of the game. If we proceed correctly here, we can exploit White's biggest structural weakness, the pawn on d4. Black should immediately respond with knight to c6, increasing pressure on the d4 square. White will usually try to relieve that tension with knight to f3, reinforcing the center. At this point, Black captures on d4, and after White recaptures with the knight, we reach a key positional moment. The pawn on d4 becomes White's greatest long-term weakness. It's isolated, meaning it cannot be protected by any of White's pawns. The pawn on e5 is too far advanced, and the pawn on c3 has been traded away. This makes the d4 pawn a constant target. From here, Black's strategic plan is simple and effective. Continually pressure the d4 pawn, coordinate the pieces toward it, and wait for the moment when White can no longer defend this weak point. Over time, this steady pressure can force mistakes and lead to a decisive advantage for Black. Next, we continue with bishop to g4, a powerful developing move that applies indirect pressure on White's pawn on d4. The idea is simple, but highly effective. By pinning the knight on f3, we temporarily remove one of the key defenders of the central pawn on d4. Now, if White carelessly plays a move like pawn to h3, trying to question the bishop, we already gain a significant advantage. In this case, we simply capture the knight on f3, and after White recaptures with the queen, we can immediately take the pawn on d4, winning material and securing a clear positional edge. If instead White captures back with the g-pawn, they do maintain protection over the d4 pawn, but this comes at a huge positional cost. Their kingside structure is completely compromised. The doubled pawns and exposed king will give Black a long-lasting advantage, especially heading into the middle or endgame. For that reason, most experienced players will choose bishop to e2, breaking the pin and neutralizing immediate threats. In response, we calmly play pawn to e6. which serves two important purposes. It opens up development for our light-squared bishop, and more importantly, it clears the way for our knight to maneuver from g8 to e7 and then to f5. Once the knight reaches f5, it adds yet another layer of pressure on the d4 pawn, reinforcing our central control. If at this stage white still tries pawn to h3, it often becomes too late. The initiative is already firmly in black's hands, and the weaknesses in white's position are ready to be exploited. Once again, pawn to h3 proves to be a dangerous and weakening move for white in this structure. If they play it, we will calmly exchange on f3 as before, but this time we follow up with a more tactical plan, queen to b6. This move highlights one of the key advantages of having advanced our c pawn early in the opening. It opens the long diagonal for the queen. Now, the pawn on d4 is directly attacked and cannot be defended properly. If white tries to protect it with the bishop, then the pawn on b2 becomes exposed and we can simply capture it, gaining material. Alternatively, if white attempts to defend by playing knight to d2, they can reach a playable position. But after bishop to b4, black keeps the initiative. We have a sizable advantage, perhaps not overwhelming, but clear enough as we are up a pawn and white lacks meaningful compensation. This demonstrates how quickly a seemingly small move like pawn to h3 can become a serious positional mistake, turning white's setup into a tactical disaster. Because of that, most players prefer the safer option, castling kingside. Against this, we proceed with our alternative plan. Knight from g8 to e7 and then knight to f5, increasing pressure once again on the d4 pawn. Here, white will usually play bishop to e3, trying to reinforce their central pawn structure. However, we must be cautious. Many players are tempted to exchange immediately on e3, thinking that the resulting doubled pawns are a weakness. But in this case, capturing is actually a strategic mistake. After knight takes e3 and f takes e3, white's pawn on d4 becomes well protected, eliminating their previous weakness. By trading, we would only help white strengthen their position. Therefore, it's best to keep our knight on f5, maintaining constant pressure on d4, preserving the tension and keeping the advantage firmly in our hands. We continue calmly with bishop to e7, finishing development and preparing to castle. After pawn to h3, we castle kingside, and following a move like rook to c1, we strike with the key break pawn to f6. This challenges white's center, and after trades, our pieces become very active. Moves like queen to b6 put pressure on both b2 and d4, giving black excellent play. In all lines with a timid pawn to c3, black gets an enjoyable dynamic position and can often win quickly by targeting white's weak d4 pawn. Now, if white accepts the gambit with pawn takes c5, their e5 and c5 pawns become split and weak. We respond with pawn to e6, creating a French-like setup and attacking c5 immediately. White can defend with either pawn to a3 or bishop to e3, the latter being their best try to hold the pawn. We continue with knight to d7, attacking both c5 and e5 at once. White can pin with bishop to b5, but even then, black has strong activity and full compensation for the pawn. At this point, we can't recapture the pawn immediately, so we continue with knight to e7. Although it may look a bit awkward having both knights temporarily blocking our bishops, it's completely fine. White has no real way to exploit this setup. White will most likely play pawn to c3, reinforcing the center, and now we can develop naturally with knight to c6, reaching a roughly equal position where we'll soon recover the pawn. However, instead of playing routinely, we can choose a more ambitious and interesting path with pawn to a6. This move poses a direct question to white. How will they respond? If they retreat with bishop to a4, we then play knight to c6, and after knight to f3, we finally capture on c5. The result is an even position where we've regained the pawn, achieved strong development, and kept plenty of dynamic potential. If instead white trades with bishop takes d7, we recapture with our bishop, keeping the pressure active. After knight to f3, we develop with knight to f5, attacking the bishop, which typically retreats to d4 here. Instead of trying to win back material immediately, we go for positional compensation. We exchange on d4 and follow up with pawn to b6. Now white has no better option than to capture on b6. But after that, black's position becomes full of life. Open lines, active pieces, and long-term pressure. Excellent compensation for the temporary pawn deficit. We recapture with the queen, and now white must play very carefully. Our queen on b6 immediately targets the b2 pawn, creating strong pressure. If white tries a weakening move like pawn to b3, we gain a big advantage with bishop to b5, a classic French defense idea. From here, the bishop can retreat to d7 and return to b5, effectively preventing white from castling kingside, which severely limits their coordination. In fact, the engine even suggests the awkward move king to d2, since normal castling becomes impossible, a clear sign that black is in control. White's best practical defense is queen to b3, blocking our pressure. In that case, we simply continue with rook to b8, building a powerful battery along the b file and threatening to win back the b2 pawn. Whether we regain the pawn or not, our position remains excellent with active pieces and strong compensation, giving black fantastic chances in the bishop to e3 line. And that wraps up our full breakdown of the Caro-Kann defense. If you learned something new today or feel this boosted your chess understanding, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Chess 369 so you never miss future lessons, traps, and opening guides. Tell me in the comments, which opening or trap do you want me to explain next? Thanks for watching, and good luck in your next game.